Sports fans anywhere can earn a nationally recognized degree from Penn State. Online. Whether you're starting or finishing your degree, study where and when it's convenient for you. Choose from more than 125 programs to become a top prospect in your field and advance your career. Learn more at worldcampusinfo.com. Penn State World Campus, a world of possibilities. Online. Visit worldcampusinfo.com today. That's worldcampusinfo.com.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
It is Mike and Mike in the morning. A girthier Mike and Mike.
Well, there you go.
Here on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, we're presented by Progressive Insurance. Phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And you can tweet us on the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed at ESPN Golic, at Golic Jr. 57, although we're going to have to institute some strict policies this morning based on the proceedings last night.
And one of the first tweets I got already from Daniel said, chances that ESPN Greeny and ESPN Golic are hosting this morning. 0.1%, 33%, 66%, 99%. You forgot 0% because he's not hosting today.
Yeah, no, you'll take the 0 on that one right now. Better chances, though, of you today getting a view of the solar eclipse.
Let me tell you.
And that's really where we're going to start. Today is an entirely eclipse-dedicated show in my mind.
Yeah.
The staff has already come together on this, except for Travis. We've got one odd man out, and of course it's Travis.
Well, Travis is the odd man out on pretty much everything. He is the odd man to the show. But it is the eclipse. It is all. We have stuff that, listen, there are sports to talk about. We got Herm Edwards coming on, Bomani Jones, Stu Gotch, Rece Davis, a whole bunch of stuff. Week 2 of the preseason football just went on. We'll get into that. But there are a few things to get into today. You were at a John Mayer concert last night. You had a baptism this weekend, which is another, and something that happened to that is something where you're killing, you millennials are killing everything else.
We're hired hitmen.
Yeah, we're going to get into that.
If you need something killed, just call. You know where to find it. We're like the faceless men. Just present the coin.
Well done. And that's another thing. No Game of Thrones spoilers this morning.
Yeah, so can we get that out of the way right now before we get into Eclipse stuff?
Because I saw Game of Thrones last night.
You saw Game of Thrones. You're fully aware of what's going on. And there's been a lot of stuff. There's been a lot of stuff leaked on it through the interwebs that I have a big-time problem with. If you're one of those people that watch the leak, you got to do some soul searching because you're a monster. But this weekend, I was out of town. I was at a baptism. Kyle Rudolph, his daughters, one of whom is my goddaughter, went out there, baptized these kids up.
Right.
Got back Sunday night.
Baptized these kids up.
Yeah, we went out there and baptized them. Original sin stood no chance this weekend.
Well, there you go.
Beat it back down to the depths of hell. But so I come back in town, and I had, in an altered physical state, bought a pair of John Mayer tickets for last night.
You were drunk one night, and you bought 2 tickets.
I got drunk. It seemed like a good idea, and I bought a couple of John Mayer tickets.
There you go.
It's basically what it amounted to. And so last night, I go to John Mayer, check that out, and I get back home, and it's a little too late knowing I'm going to come in and do this show to really get anything done otherwise. Game of Thrones is an hour and 15-minute episode last night, so I thought, okay, I'll watch it this morning. So I haven't been on Twitter since 7:30 last night. I'm putting an embargo on social media.
You got to do this show, and then you got to go to a college roundtable.
Yeah, on SportsCenter after the show.
Right, and then so you have to make it all that time before you go home and seclude yourself and watch it.
Exactly, but my point is that I am, staying out of social media until then. I have vacuum sealed myself in this room, so the only people that can ruin it for me are in this building, and really Travis, because he's doing social media this morning. Right. So he's got that power, and I've told Travis I'll beat him to within an inch of his life if he puts any sort of spoiler tweet in here.
Golic Hammer always wins.
Yeah, that is true. We've got 2 Golic Hammers on set.
Yes,
today.
we do.
Nice.
So that would really hurt Pickler. But you said it. We're going to get to off the top and some of the things that went on in sports. But the eclipses today, it's unreal. This thing. I was in Colorado, in Denver, and Loveland, actually getting another stem cell procedure done on my shoulder at Premier Regenerative. I can never say that word.
Regenerative?
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 It regenerates. Premier Stem Cell and Wellness Center.
Yeah. Warjanowski.
So, well done.
Nailed it.
But I was out there getting this done. By the way, fantastic. It has been great for me. But going out there are signs everywhere on the roads about the congestion from the traffic because they're close to Wyoming. I guess Casper, Wyoming, you get you're 100% in the path. You get 100%. What's the term that
path of totality?
The path of totality is 100%. But so the hotel I normally stay at sold out. There was on the morning, Friday morning, when I got up there, the local news guy was at the hardware store talking about the new glasses they just got in because all the other glasses has sold out. And you and I have both agreed that the one person in our house that we have to remind to get glasses today is your sister, Sydney. My lovely daughter, Sydney. Sydney, if you want to look at the eclipse, you need some glasses, okay?
Do you, though?
Yes, you do.
Are you sure?
Put the glasses on.
Are you sure this isn't like a ploy by Big Glasses?
Don't start going down that millennial killing everything road.
I'm just saying, like, how do we know we really need glasses? Like, does someone look up and make – I want a firsthand account from someone who's looked into an eclipse sun. Now, this would be a little while ago. The last eclipse was, something like what?
1979.
1979, so it's been a while.
So it's everybody except for Rusty, who, my compatriot here working one of the cameras, was none of you were born in 1979, the last time it was in the U.S. There's actually some fun facts. The eclipse, there's an eclipse every 18 months on the Earth somewhere.
Yeah. Neil deGrasse Tyson came with that heat the other day on Twitter, kind of reminding people of that, taking a little edge off, because while I'm here for the Eclipse Twitter is an interesting place. Like, you heard what happened with Priscilla, right?
Oh, yes, I did.
Planned an entire vacation around going to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, forgetting the eclipse was this week.
Which, by the way, we were all in Jackson Hole. It's a fantastic place to go.
Awesome place to have a trip. I wanted him to experience it.
All of a sudden, $100, $150 room is $800. I mean, it's crazy everywhere. It's unbelievable. I heard, who did your show this morning?
Mo Eggert.
Mo Eggert was talking about money lost for productivity at work, talking about like after the Super Bowl, when people are talking about the Super Bowl water cooler stuff.
Which you get, yeah.
I understand.
Huge event.
Quite honestly, productivity loss talking about Game of Thrones today for people at work. They said for a 20-minute period today, $694 million will be lost in productivity. I don't know how you figure that stuff out, but it's a big number, so I thought I'd throw it out there. I don't know how much I buy into that, but there are going to be a lot of people not at work looking at this eclipse, hopefully with your glasses on.
So, the solar eclipse will cost America almost $700 million in lost productivity. Wait, what was this? Put the one back up before. They had something on the screen. Man who was left partially blinded by 1963 eclipse offers warning. 20 seconds is all it took.
There you go. Put the glasses on. Don't anybody be a hero and wonder, am I really going to go blind? Don't do it.
It just seemed like one of those places. That's an easy cash grab to tell everyone, by the way, it's like tuxedos for weddings. I've often said that industry feels like a sham, because what is a tuxedo but a fancy overpriced suit for basically weddings, proms, very few other things. They're just stealing cash from you. Eclipse glasses seems like an easy place to do that. Like, take these glasses or else you're not going to be able to look at this sweet sun.
The man just said he went blind.
Every time we go to an eye doctor now for an exam, they dilate your eyes and look in there. The first thing they say is, you looked at a solar eclipse sometime in your life, he said.
See that? See, believe it. Wear the glasses. Buy the glasses. Wear the glasses. And by the way, 79 was the last time in USA. We only have to wait 7 years for it to come back again. There'll be another eclipse in 7 years, but it'll only be between New York and Texas, which, of course, brings up what? The East Coast bias.
Of course. Listen, do eclipses have East Coast bias? Wait for my column coming on Tuesday. The last time a solar eclipse swept the whole width of the United States was 1918.
1918.
It's a wide eclipse.
All right, that is a wide eclipse. So we have a lot of eclipse stuff to go on today because, listen, everybody's doing it. I know here, and I think there's an app where you put in your area code and it'll tell you how you'll see the eclipse. Like here, in Hartford, Connecticut, I believe it starts at 1:25 in the afternoon.
Yep.
And it at 2:45 is the total eclipse.
Maximum eclipse.
Boy, now would have been the time for the song.
I got you.
Thank you.
Now there's only love in the dark.
Nothing I can say.
The total eclipse of the heart.
There you go,
yeah.
Yeah, that's what we were looking for there.
Feeling real good. That's what we were looking for there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So 2:45 here in Hartford is the total eclipse, and the whole thing lasts for a couple hours, but, obviously when it starts to finish. So that's what we're looking for here. Obviously, look in your area for it as well. But I think it's a pretty cool thing.
I think it is, and unless you're Nick Saban, and then you want to just watch it on the Weather Channel or on one of those apps. Nick Saban actually a little more hip to the app scene, I guess.
Yeah, and you're going to make sure if his players want to see it, that they have the glasses, but he'll be in a coach's meeting.
Well, you saw the Tennessee Titans are actually having an eclipse party at the end of practice.
Cool.
Mike
Why
Mularkey
not?
is giving him like 7 minutes at the end of practice. It's going to be music, glasses, strobe lights, the whole works. He gets it.
I think that's a cool thing.
Honorary millennial. We'll give him that
There
one.
you go. All right. What do you say we do?
But first, for right now, we'll do Off the Top.
Off the top.
Yeah, hit the button. Giancarlo Stanton hit his Major League Baseball leading 45th home run of the season Sunday in a 6-4 win over the Mets. It was also Stanton's 12th home run this month after he also had 12 in July.
Yep, he is, as far as consecutive months with 12 homers, is tied a Marlins record in a calendar month. Consecutive months with 12 home runs since 2000. 2002, A-Rod did it. He had 57 home runs that season. In 2001, Barry Bonds did it, hit 73 home runs. Is he on pace still for 60 or 60? Not anymore, right? Because he went like 3 games. My God, 3 whole games without a home run. I'd love to see him get to 60 or 61.
Would be nice to see him touch that range. It's been a while since we've had something to get this excited about in the home run realm. I guess no post-Derby slump for him, unlike one of his partners.
Off the top.
But last night, the Red Sox defeated the Yankees 5-1 to take 2 out of 3 against their rivals for the second straight weekend and increase their AL East lead to 5 games. According to 538.com, Boston has an 85% chance to win the division, up from 42% just 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, you look through July 30th, they were a half game behind the Yankees. You mentioned 42% chance to win the division. 14-3 later, last 17 games, going from half a game back to now, as you mentioned, the 5-game lead. You look at the acquisition of Eduardo Nunez and the call-up of Rafael Devers, both in the lineup. Red Sox are 12-5 and have played at a level that would make them one of the best offenses in baseball. Since those 2 names I mentioned, runs per game, they're first in the league, batting average first, on-base percentage first, slugging percentage second. So those 2 have been a good addition, but this team is red hot right now.
Red hot right now and hasn't changed any street names yet, so we'll keep you up to date on all that news.
Off the top.
But as I mentioned before, a home run derby slump in the second half of the season. Aaron Judge strikes out in his 37th game to tie for the all-time record. He claimed the single-season record for consecutive games with a strikeout in his 36th game on Saturday, but Sunday tied the all-time record held by former Expos pitcher Bill Stoneman.
Yeah, back in 1971, and now you're tied with a pitcher. That's just absolutely brutal. By the way, against the Red Sox this year, Judge, his batting average is 155, 9 for 58, 25 strikeouts in 15 games against the Red Sox. So a guy that had the hot stick got figured out a little bit, obviously, the second half. Still hits the occasional dinger, but unfortunately striking out way too much.
That's kind of what happened to young players in every sport as you go through and people start to get the book on you, start to get a little bit of a body of work on you. We see it with quarterbacks in the NFL a lot.
Now how do you come back?
Exactly, which usually starts to become the measure of what kind of pro you're going to be.
Off the top.
Speaking of one pro calling it quits, wide receiver Anquan Boldin announced Sunday that he plans to retire and focus on humanitarian work. He's the 9th most receptions in NFL history with 1,076, including an NFL rookie record, 101 catches in 2003.
So 9th, as you mentioned, in receptions, 14th in receiving yards. 2015, he won the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year. You mentioned his rookie record as well. There are 14 receivers with 1,000 career receptions. 3 of them announced their retirement in or after 2016. So as of late, Steve Smith did it, Andre Johnson did it, and now Anquan Boldin did it. 14 straight seasons with at least 50 receptions. Second longest streak in NFL history behind a tight end in Tony Gonzalez. We were talking before the show, Hall of Famer. You know, you wonder where, because you have to wait those 5 years, where he's going to be in the 5 years.
What transpires exactly? How far does he get pushed down that receptions list in 5 years? And just knowing what a difficulty it is for receivers to get into the Hall period, they tend to have to wait a little bit of extra time. And with the guys that are ahead of him still waiting, it seems like that could be some of that.
Yeah, it does. I mean, his stats are up there, you know, top 10, top 15 in some of these, but will it be there in 5 years? Is he a guy that's that bubble guy? And if he is, he's going to have to wait a long, long time if he gets in at all. So we'll see. But I remember a former running back in college, a tough receiver that would certainly drop his shoulder and run you over after he caught the ball. But as you also mentioned, a great humanitarian. He says football, you know, doesn't want to be defined by that in his life. He has a lot more to do outside of football, and that's what he's going to concentrate on.
Like I said, we hear that statement a lot of times as football is what I do and not who I am. Very rarely do people live that out as well as Anquan Boldin has. So certainly wish him all the best in his life post-football.
Off the top.
And finally, we're less than a week away from Mayweather and McGregor Mayweather, which it blew me away. I didn't realize. This sort of snuck up on me, but that fight is coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
According to Westgate Las Vegas Superbook, McGregor is currently a plus 375 underdog to win the fight, down from plus 1,100 that he opened at. That means a $100 bet would win 375 at current odds compared to $1,100 at the opening price.
It's gone down quite a bit, right? I mean, at plus 1,100 and now plus 375. I mean, I don't understand all the gambling things of the world. I mean, I didn't really start gambling heavily till I was done playing. I'm just kidding. I gambled while I was playing.
Nailed it.
You done?
Yeah. No,
okay. All right. Why don't we end on that, and we'll continue talking about
Off the top.
that fight. Yeah,
and that is Off the Top, brought to you by Zepa. Go to Zepa.com. That's ZYPPAH.com, and get a Zepa so you can stop snoring and enjoy the summer. And yeah, we can sit there for a little bit because it really was. It's been the talk of the entire summer. It's been a fight that's been largely about the build-up and the press conferences and all these different shows in front of the media, that we've kind of always poo-pooed what the ultimate product's going to be. But based on a lot of those results and the movement in the Vegas line, we see some people are looking at that as an opportunity.
Yeah, this should be really, really interesting. Obviously, I know I'm getting it. McGregor holds the world's largest grossing gate in MMA history at $17.7 million at UFC 205. Mayweather certainly has been in his share of big money fights. He holds 6 of the 10 largest grossing gates in Nevada combat sports history, including $72 million in the Manny Pacquiao fight. These guys are going to make monster money. I haven't asked you. Are you buying the fight?
I am buying the fight. I think I'm going to do it with a group, though. Maybe even go out to somewhere and just kind of do it the way I think you're supposed to do this fight, which is with a group of people with something else to entertain you, because the fight's going to be over when Floyd decides it's going to be.
That's what I was going to get to as well. I'm going to see it. I'll be in South Bend. As your mother, my wife, she's doing the Notre Dame Trail Walk, listening right now. I think she has 13-mile walk today and a 17-mile bike ride. We'll certainly talk more about that and the money she's raising. But Notre Dame 175th anniversary of Father Soren founding Notre Dame, and they're recreating those 317 miles in a walk and a bike ride. They're over 200 miles in. As I said, only one in the family could do it, correct?
Oh, only one in the family that could and would do it. Again, Mom always feels some strange sense of obligation to these things because, listen, she's a great woman, and you're going to go in for that last day and try to steal her shine because you're a monster.
I am. I'm going the last day and walking the 3 miles on that Saturday, the morning of the fight. And then as she's passed out after walking and riding for 317 miles, I'll be watching the fight in South Bend. I am definitely going to get it. So you still think all that's gone on, Mayweather coming out and acting like, McGregor's the favorite on paper when really he's just trying to sell more pay-per-view clicks. The gloves being approved for 8 ounces. It was supposed to be 10 ounces. You still think, even though the odds have come down as well, that this is over whenever Mayweather wants it to be over?
Whenever he decides it. And I've been trying to find, and there really are hard examples to find in this realm as far as relating it back to what we did in football. Because I always say, Floyd Mayweather is a professional. He's been doing this. You played in the NFL for 9 years. Right. You spent the bulk of your life trying to figure out, all right, how am I going to do this the best I can, working tirelessly at that one craft, trying to make sure you're as good at it as you possibly can. And that's what Floyd Mayweather's done, to the tune of being one of the greatest fighters of our generation. So to think that some guy is going to come and co-opt this skill set a couple of months out and roll into the fight and have even some semblance of a chance, to me, is disrespectful. Like, that is blatantly disrespectful to a guy that's dedicated his life to this craft.
And I've always said Mayweather has nothing to win in this but gain in this, except a boatload of money, because he's supposed to win this. So when he wins it, everybody will say, well, you were supposed to. And God forbid if he loses that thing, it would be ridiculous. So as this is the week of the fight, you'll hear from everybody. Brian Custer of Showtime said that you're never going to see another spectacle like this.
Conor McGregor's the biggest draw and the biggest name in MMA. You look at his last fight. His last fight, I think, did like 1.3 million in pay-per-view buys. And without question, Floyd Mayweather is still the biggest name in boxing, even though he had been away for 2 years. Only these two guys who have those kind of personalities could come to make this kind of fight and bring just a casual fan with it. And I think it's because of the spectacle surrounding it is the reason why the casual fan is interested in this fight. There's some people, and listen, there's some people who even came up to me and said, look, I want to see Conor McGregor give him an elbow and kick him to the face. That's what I'm going to watch the fight for. Obviously that stuff can't happen, but that's the reason why some people want to watch it. And look, I'm all for ratings. If that's what's going to draw you in, more power to you. Click, pay your money, and watch the fight.
And that's what it's all about, right? The casual. That's how you make all this money. You don't get just the boxing fan or just the MMA fan. You have to get the casual fan, and that's going to be the most of these people. It's going to be the spectacle, just the word that was used there, of what this may entail.
And it's got a bunch of different ways that you can be interested. Like, you can be like me and want to go in and see Conor McGregor absolutely get dismantled in the way I believe is going to happen. And he's kind of fed into that, probably knowingly along the way. We've seen the videos of him noodling, getting ready. He had that training session in front of the media where a lot of videos came out that looked a little bit ridiculous, I think purposely so in a lot of senses. You've got that. You've got the crowd that wants to see Conor McGregor take down Floyd, obviously, for any number of reasons there. I mean, listen, these are both guys that in certain aspects along the way have revealed parts of their personality that aren't exactly endearing. We know Floyd's history outside of the ring. We know some of the problematic things that Conor McGregor has said in pre-fight press conferences along the way. So it's a one where if both guys could lose, I'd sign up for that one. But at the very least, there's got to be some winner, and I ultimately believe it's going to be the guy who's actually a professional boxer.
Who do you want to win, or do you not care?
I don't care who wins. I think I would like to just for boxing, because, I mean, if he loses, there are people that say, yeah, you can sell that rematch, though, for a ton of money, and Floyd the businessman would think about that. That's a crushing blow for boxing. If that guy from that new world of MMA that's already kind of trying to push you out comes in and dethrones one of the greatest fighters of your generation, that's tough to overcome.
I completely agree. I don't think this can be a thought about a rematch and what money it could bring, because that would go about if Mayweather were to lose this thing. I agree. It would be horrific for the sport of boxing, which is already trying to regain some popularity, with some big fights out there. They're trying to gain some traction again with the casual fan. We know, obviously, boxing enthusiasts are always going to love it, but I think they even have to feel it's trying to get back again. And for Mayweather, one of the greatest defensive fighters, especially of all time, let's be honest, if he loses, it's going to be because he got knocked out. There's no losing by a decision. Conor McGregor, and plus Conor McGregor has only gone the distance one time in his MMA career, and that's of 25 minutes. This would be 36 minutes, 3 minutes per 12 rounds. So I doubt if from McGregor's side it's going to the distance, so it would have to be a knockout.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Got Herm Edwards now joining us in studio.
Yes.
Giving us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. And Herm, we've been talking about a lot this morning. We've got some tweets coming in right now about the Eclipse. Where are you at on the Eclipse getting ready to happen later today?
Well, I think if you're a coach, obviously, you take an Eclipse break, right, with your team. That'd be kind of a good deal to do. We're on NFL Live, actually, when it really is supposed to hit. And I think we might have to do something on NFL Live.
You should.
Maybe just leave the studio and go out at 2:45, I think it is.
So I guess the thought is you would embrace this?
Oh, yeah.
Go back to the coaching cap.
Yeah, we had some fun. Yeah, we had some fun with it. Because, the players – now, most of the players – I mean, this is preseason, obviously. You want to have some fun. Lighten it up a little bit. This is the dress rehearsal week, obviously, third week. But still, I would lighten it up and have some fun with it.
Might as well. I mean, Mike Mularkey, I know, is getting ready to do that with the Tennessee Titans. They've got like basically a 7-minute set-aside period of time where they're going to have music, the glasses.
Yeah, that's what I would do. I'd have the trainers come out with the glasses, and just come on everywhere. Because I was a big believer in – I didn't like coaches wearing shades during practice.
Right.
I'm not a shade guy, and I was wanted always coaches to look people in the eye, so that's when I would actually bring some shades out.
Yeah,
the whole team.
You would definitely want to do it for this.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to make sure you explain it to the guys. Listen, you can't look directly up into this thing because it's been a while since the last Eclipse.
Yeah, and a lot of tweets coming in, the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Winners in today's Eclipse event, optometrists.
Yes.
Dennis says all schools are canceled today in southeast Missouri.
Wow.
Due to the Eclipse today.
Can't imagine they're going to cancel NFL Live for you guys.
No, we're going to go on. We're going live, yeah.
Thomas says you only need the glasses when the sun is partially covered, no need when it's fully covered. Thank you, Thomas.
We didn't know that.
I mean,
how about millennials killing eclipses? Jeff tweets in, all you have to do is put your phone in selfie mode, turn around, and look at your phone to enjoy the eclipse. No eye damage. Millennials fixing the eclipse. You don't need the glasses at all. See? Save some money, not give it to big glasses.
Wow.
Like Big Pharma?
That's the cool thing, wearing the glasses, though.
Yeah, I think so as
well.
well.
The whole football wearing glasses,
how
the
much they cost. So most coaches are buying into it.
Most coaches are. I mean, Herm sounds like he'd be all in on this. We had one coach decidedly out on eclipses. Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide is not here for your eclipse nonsense.
We'll set it up so if the players want to go out there and get some sunglasses and look at it, I guess they can. That's not something that I'm really that focused on right now. I watch the Weather Channel every day. They're already saying what it's going to look like in every city in America. So what's going to be significant? Just watch the Weather Channel. You see what's going to be like in Portland, Oregon. It's Clayton, Georgia is the number one place in the country to have 100%. There are all kind of people there. My house will probably be the only empty house on the whole lake.
We'll go back to Scott.
So I'm going to watch it on TV. Maybe we should have a team meeting about how we're going to do this. I haven't thought of that yet.
Knowing Nick, they're going to go indoors for this practice.
That's not practice. Out of the equation.
Hey, the Eclipse passed by. Don't worry about it. We're going to
think he'll let his player. I mean,
he's good. He's great.
He is something.
He's working it. He's working it. He's working it.
You can see it on TV, but I don't need to see it in person.
The only thing that's surprising, he hinted at the meeting there. I know coaches usually looking for any excuse to meet. The surprising that Nick Saban didn't take that. Like, all right, we're going to have a meeting. Here's a slideshow of what the Eclipse is going to look like. You guys are good. Like Herm said, practice inside.
He's going to use this. Watch. He's using this. It's good. You always turn things around when you're the coach. Somebody's going one way, you're going to go another way with your team. He'll have some fun with it with his players, I promise you.
I'm just sad we missed the opportunity for Nick to ask what number Eclipse was on Florida State.
Yeah. What's the scouting report?
Where's he in the media guide again? How many rushing yards he had last year?
What number is he? Exactly
if
right.
He's not on Florida State. I don't care.
I don't care what
I don't care.
Exactly
so
right.
Switching it now to the pro game, you just mentioned dress rehearsal week. So from a coach's standpoint, and we're all players, you were a coach then, obviously, as well for years. Third preseason game, starters play the most. What is this week like compared to the last two?
It's changed somewhat in the fact when you have these combination practices, and I think a lot of coaches are going to that even before the dress rehearsal game because that is a game where you can actually script practice. You can script situations, and the ones go against the ones. So this is why a lot of the ones now are not playing as much. Some are in the preseason, but this is the game where basically you give the team a little bit of a game plan, actually, for the young guys, too. You put in a little bit of a game plan of your opponent. You'd like to get into the second quarter and then bring them out after halftime, let them go into the third. It'll be interesting, and I've said this, with a couple of these quarterbacks, like let's just say Trubisky, Deshaun Watson, maybe even Mahomes, do you play them in the second quarter against the varsity and then bring them out in the third quarter and let them play? In some of these situations, I would lean that way, actually.
You give them some time behind that first line.
Oh, no doubt. And not only that, bring them out the third quarter and let them participate. A feel of a real game. I mean, this is like, and even on the sideline with your coaches, now you got so many players. I mean, that's always difficult. You got all these players, right? But the communication, I think, is important in the preseason as well for coaching staffs, especially new coaching staffs. Where do the players stand when they come off the field, when you're correcting things? Is the offense on the left side? Is the defense on the – where's the quarterback? All the minutia that goes on as the game is being played, you got to orchestrate that with your coaches. How do they communicate with the head coach? How do I get to the offensive coordinator or coordinator wants to talk to me, defense coordinator? All that communication goes on as well.
And you mentioned the quarterbacks in a lot of this. I'm interested in some of those races, and we see it with Deshaun Kaiser in Cleveland as well, and Trubisky in Chicago, and even now with what we've got going on in Jacksonville with Chad Henne and Blake Bortles. How soon after this game do you want to have a decision like that sewn up? How much is this going to be a cap on that, or is this still an information-gathering process all the way to week one?
For me, this would be it, because here's the problem. The players want to know, too. They want to know who's the guy, coach. And you don't want it to be played this way, where the media is actually, asking the question.
Right.
It's done. That's the starter. Now, in your mind, you might say, okay, like let's say in Denver, if you're conflicted right now, you got to make a decision, say, this is the starter, boom. And then in the media, the next question, is he the starter all year? That's the next question.
How long's the leash?
And you just say, and now you got to say as a coach, he's the starter. Now, a lot of these guys know if you're in Cleveland, I would say Cleveland. If you're in Cleveland, if you're in Chicago, if you're in Houston, in your mind as a coach, a lot of those starters are in pencil only. Not in pen, in pencil. Now, you don't have to say that, but it's like, okay, we're going to go this way, but if it kind of gets ugly and we start losing games, that guy not performing well, That young guy's going to play.
How difficult would it be, because Trubisky, Kaiser, Deshaun Watson not really playing with the first team?
Right.
So if they even don't in this game, how difficult would it be to have any of those guys jump the starter without really playing against the ones?
Well, I think in practice they're probably participating.
So
with
it's
the
going
ones.
more. More based on that,
exactly.
so not just what we're seeing.
And that's why I say, these combined practices. I think a lot of coaches are going to that. I can see that.
Do you like them better than the preseason? It almost seems like you get more work. Because
you do.
In preseason, it could be a three-play drive and you're done. In that, it's a 20-play drive. 3 plays, okay, take it back to the original line of scrimmage and we keep going.
Yes, and you could control the environment of how you want the tempo to go with veteran guys participating. And you can make the situations. You can say, we're going down here. Okay, my ones will go against your ones. We want to see this, coach. You can do all these things. We can say, we got a hot period going on right now. In other words, we're going to blitz, okay? Knowing if they blitz, guess what? If your guys come scot-free, you don't hit the quarterback. All those things are being done in those practices where you combine together.
Certainly a nice break for the players, too, when you're so used to going against your teammates day in and day out in camp, seeing these come up more, because it gets that competition and camaraderie where you get your guys banded together against theirs. Now we get a lot of practice fights because of it.
Yeah, well, and here's what can happen, too. And we've done a couple of these. I've done some with Tom Coughlin. Toward the end, it's the young guys. You actually play a game. I mean, you play a series of plays where it's tackle football. Mm-hmm. So you get your tackling and your live tackling in as well.
Right.
So you can – it's going to go to that because, look, we all know 4 preseason games is not going to continue to happen in the NFL.
Right.
They're going to cut it. The money's involved in that. That's why they haven't cut it yet, right? What do they do? Because 2 of those games are tied into the fan base's tickets now.
Right.
So how do you figure out where the money goes? How do you orchestrate the money that when you to cancel 2 games?
For someone in your position, undrafted free agent, I remember in New Orleans, you guys had New England come in, and that's where you got like a lot of your reps, correct?
Especially
you mentioned at the end of practice, like Herm said.
Yeah, especially as training camp goes on, that rep delineation starts to side in favor of the guys that are going to be playing meaningful minutes during the season. And so you're looking for any chance you can to get on tape. And that is a great example. At the end of practice, it's young guys only on that field getting a ton of extra work in, which is extremely valuable.
Yeah, and that's important. We're all sitting here, all football guys, and we know football is a game where you have to be hardened. But what does that mean? You got to put pads on. You're actually going to have some contact to get ready to play. I mean, that's the game of football. You can't continue to say, well, we're going to just go half speed. We're not. You have to have collisions. I mean, that's football. You don't want anything to happen, but that's how you get hardened as a player.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
ESPN College Game Days Rece Davis joins us, giving us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. How you doing this morning, Rece?
How you doing, Rece?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing
better
well.
than you guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Game of Thrones spoiler.
Yeah, we got a question about that. Real quick, we want to throw this note in. We'll get to it off the top of the hour, a little more into this. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell close to signing a 5-year extension that would run through 2024. Important date there is that 2020-21 season when the new CBA is up, that he would be there for that. DeMaurice Smith, there's another election in the NFLPA in 2018, then 2021, March of those years. So we'll get more off the top 9 o'clock with that. But Roger Goodell looking in close to signing that 5-year extension. All right, Rece. Let's start with the spoiler thing. I know you don't watch Game of Thrones. You gave it a shot.
Yeah, I don't like medieval
and you don't.
That's not my bag.
Spoilers as a whole. I mean, should there be that 20? Because Herm Edwards just absolutely blew it up, and Brooks just blew it up again. I can't. He deserves to be just slapped for it.
Herm, by the way, had the audacity to walk back in here and reference it again.
Yeah.
Walked back in here, walked right up to me, and almost like he was mocking me, referenced it again.
Stunning. So your thought on spoilers?
I think it's not cool. Yeah, you can't do that to somebody. I mean, you get locked into a series, a show. You don't need somebody telling you what happened.
Got to be that. We're saying that 24-hour kind of grace period.
I want to say to Herm, he always tells us, don't press in.
Yep.
Don't be that guy.
Yep.
Don't be that guy, Herm.
Don't press in.
And this morning, Herm was that guy.
He did. He pressed the verbal send.
He did. He pressed send on a verbal tweet, which is not what we're calling talking. But, Rece, I feel like in your world, this would be the equivalent. Yes, millennials ruin talking, too. In your world, Rece, I feel like this is actually the equivalent of, we know we have the big reveal every week for the college football playoff committee's top 4. We do all their rankings. This would be like revealing the top 4 that's going to eventually play in the playoff, the week of the playoff, on a Tuesday night before they actually send it out there. This is how egregious this feels. So
I would agree with that. And, we don't even see it. Those of us who are on the show, we don't see what the rankings are before they come out. It would be wrong. It would feel wrong if we knew ahead of time and then went out and pretended as if we didn't know.
So as we start this college season, and we'll get talk of the playoffs down the road, we see some, big against big in week 1. Mm-hmm. We obviously with Alabama and Florida State, but even Ohio State, Indiana, you have a Big Ten game right off the match. Just big against big. Do you think instead of that opening week or two where you play the smaller school like that preseason type thing, do you think that's going by the wayside with the college football committee right now?
I don't know if it's going by the wayside. I think it's better for the sport because I think it generates a lot of interest early on and people don't ease into it. Now, you guys would know better than I. I would suspect it might be better. Nick Saban said several times it's great for off-season preparation. They seemingly do it every year. But I don't know if it's better for your team all the time, especially maybe if you have a young quarterback or something, getting him a couple of double-directional state games to get settled might be useful and helpful, but I think overall it's good for the sport to play these big games early. And I think the committee likes it, too, to answer your question.
Well, and we've seen the committee take a liking to those big games popping up during the season. Ohio State and Oklahoma's home and home the last couple of years was a big example of why most people think Ohio State found themselves in the playoffs last year. But Nick Saban came out and said he'd like to see more of that interconference played during the season and eliminating some of those games. Where are you at on that, just because so many of those smaller schools really get by every year on the money coming from those games?
I had a long talk, not this camp, but last year. I was in Tallahassee watching Florida State practice, and after practice, somehow Jimbo Fisher and I got around to this. Jimbo is adamant that they need to continue playing these games because the schools like he attended depend on the revenue from the big schools having the men in play. I'm a little ambivalent about it. As long as you don't play too many, I'm okay with it. I think that we're probably going to reach a point in the business aspect of it. I know nobody likes it when we say it's a business, but it certainly is. It certainly is a business. And you look right now at what a great job television does, us and our competitors as well, and what an experience it is to watch a game at home. You have to do something to make people want to come to the stadium to enjoy the experience, to make it different. And it can't necessarily be a game where you know your team's going to win 52-0, because most of these schools, and you guys know at Notre Dame, you drive 2 or 3 hours to get there. Maybe in Notre Dame's case, maybe you fly and then drive, and you spend the entire day there. It's a commitment. Yeah. You're making a commitment to go to the game, and it needs to be something special. Because of that, I think everybody needs to probably upgrade their schedules. The SEC and the ACC need to play more conference games. They're still only playing 8. They need to play 9 or 10 and then play one on the outside. And then if you play 11 big-time games and you have one more where you're helping out a smaller program or getting your team rested before a rivalry game, I've got no issue with it. But those two conferences particularly need to up the ante a little bit.
And again, it always is an interesting one with the smaller schools because they do get a good payday. And that payday can do well for that school. And I know that I would speak for a smaller school player. I don't know if you would as well, Mike. I think those players look forward to it. I think those players look, because we always talk about, someone going to get hurt, they're going to get slaughtered. I think those guys want to see how they match up against the Alabamas of the world and the big schools of the world. So I'm kind of both ways on it. I think those guys like to do that. The money certainly helps the small school, but it's not an attractive matchup, to your point, for people to watch.
It's not, and everybody gets all upset when they happen in November. I don't, because I don't think there's any difference in it happening in September or the week before rivalry games like several of the schools in the SEC do. But one of the things that you've had happen down there is you've had a good FCS team come in to play a contender, and it's the FCS team who starts protecting its players, they've got the playoffs coming. It's almost like an NFL situation where your spot in the postseason has been clinched, and you want to be careful with your quarterback. So you've seen some of that as well.
And listen, we've seen enough instances, too, where a lot of people will justify it, the crowd that you talked about, running up the score, players getting injured, where you look and see, I think it was the Citadel giving Florida a run for its money last year or the year before. People will go all the way back to App State and Michigan and try and make a lot of those parables, but it's a little bit tougher to justify. So sticking with the top-end teams, this feels almost NBA, and we've talked about the Patriots like this in the NFL. We talked about Golden State, Cleveland like this. Alabama, Ohio State seems like one that people are circling already as a college football playoff and maybe even a national title picture. A team outside of those two, maybe even outside of the top four, that you see as the biggest threat to those?
I put Florida State in there because I've said I think the first game in Atlanta will also be the last one, Alabama and Florida State. But Ohio State's certainly right there with them. Outside the top four, depending on where you think Clemson is, I think if Clemson's quarterback situation is resolved, then they're going to be as good as Florida State and Alabama, Ohio State. You just need to see that to make sure. I like Oklahoma State on offense. I think that their offense, if their defense can help the offense, Mason Rudolph and those guys, if James Washington's healthy, that they could be a sleeper. TCU, also out of the Big 12, and then another team that's going to open up early in Australia that I think will have a little bit of a bounce back. They finished strong last year, and they have enough challenges on the schedule, and the home schedule falls right, is Stanford. I think Stanford is a team that will be more of a factor in the playoff race in the Pac-12 race.
Picking two Big 12 teams before Oklahoma, huh?
No, he was saying outside. I was sort of
you're putting Oklahoma in that. Okay,
maybe
right.
not in the top four, but Oklahoma's like a top
okay.
6, 7, 8 team.
All right. I thought I had a scoop there.
Yeah, you were looking to make some news.
I was, yeah.
You were looking to make some news out of that one. Rece, I want to look at another Big Ten team in all of this. Michigan. Mm-hmm. You look at what they've been able to accomplish, and they're playing the quarterback situation close to the vest. Wilton Spate, John O'Korn, Jim Harbaugh, keeping the rest of that roster, I should say, shrouded in mystery. What are we expecting out of that team that turned over so much NFL talent here early on in the Harbaugh tenure?
I have so much faith in what Harbaugh's done and in their recruiting his first couple of years. I think they had some young guys who played a good bit. I know they lost virtually all of their starters on defense. I think they're going to be really good. I know people are very skeptical, and I've seen people say they're going to be ranked around the top 10 only because of Harbaugh. Right. That's where I have them. I am an AP poll voter this year. I think they're going to be a threat because his teams are just that. He's got it up and running now. He certainly has a lot of pieces to replace on defense, but I think they have enough in place and enough young guys who played a good bit as freshmen last year who will fill that void nicely. I think they're going to be really good.
The best of Mike and Mike.
ESPN College Game Days, Rece Davis joins us, giving us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. How you doing this morning, Rece?
How you doing, Rece?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing
better
well.
than you guys.
Yeah.
Yes. Game of Thrones spoiler.
Yeah, we got a question about that. Real quick, we want to throw this note in. We'll get to it off the top of the hour, a little more into this. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell close to signing a 5-year extension that would run through 2024. Important date there is that 2020-21 season when the new CBA is up, that he would be there for that. DeMaurice Smith, there's another election in the NFLPA in 2018, then 2021, March of those years. So we'll get more off the top 9 o'clock with that. But Roger Goodell looking in close to signing that 5-year extension. All right, Rece. Let's start with the spoiler thing. I know you don't watch Game of Thrones. You gave it a shot.
Yeah, I don't like the medieval
and you don't.
That's not my bag.
Spoilers as a whole. I mean, should there be that 20? Because Herm Edwards just absolutely blew it up, and Brooks just blew it up again. I can't. He deserves to be just slapped for it.
Herm, by the way, had the audacity to walk back in here and reference it again.
Yeah.
Walked back in here, walked right up to me, and almost like he was mocking me, referenced it again.
Stunning. So your thought on spoilers?
I think it's not cool. Yeah, you can't do that to somebody. I mean, you get locked into a series, a show. You don't need somebody telling you what happened.
Got to be that. We're saying that 24-hour kind of grace period.
Yeah, I want to say to Herm, he always tells us, don't press in.
Yep.
Don't be that guy.
Yep.
Don't be that guy, Herm.
Don't press in.
And this morning, Herm was that guy.
He did. He pressed the verbal send.
He did. He pressed send on a verbal tweet, which is not what we're calling talking. But, Rece, I feel like in your world, this would be the equivalent. Yes, millennials ruin talking, too. In your world, Rece, I feel like this is actually the equivalent of, we know we have the big reveal every week for the college football playoff committee's top 4. We do all their rankings. This would be like revealing the top 4 that's going to eventually play in the playoff, the week of the playoff, on a Tuesday night before they actually send it out there. This is how egregious this feels. So
I would agree with that. And we don't even see it. Those of us who are on the show, we don't see what the rankings are before they come out. It would be wrong. It would feel wrong if we knew ahead of time and then went out and pretended as if we didn't know.
So as we start this college season, and we'll get talk of the playoffs down the road, we see some, big against big in week one. Mm-hmm. We obviously with Alabama and Florida State, but even Ohio State, Indiana, you have a Big Ten game right off the mat. Just big against big. Do you think instead of that opening week or two where you play the smaller school like that preseason type thing, do you think that's going by the wayside with the college football committee right now?
I don't know if it's going by the wayside. I think it's better for the sport because I think it generates a lot of interest early on and people don't ease into it. Now, you guys would know better than I. I would suspect it might be better. Nick Saban said several times it's great for off-season preparation. They seemingly do it every year. But I don't know if it's better for your team all the time, especially maybe if you have a young quarterback or something, getting him a couple of double-directional state games to get settled might be useful and helpful. But I think overall it's good for the sport to play these big games early. And I think the committee likes it, too, to answer your question.
Well, and we've seen the committee take a liking to those big games popping up during the season. Ohio State and Oklahoma's home and home the last couple of years was a big example of why most people think Ohio State found themselves in the playoff last year. But Nick Saban came out and said he'd like to see more of that interconference play during the season and eliminating some of those games. Where are you at on that, just because so many of those smaller schools really get by every year on the money coming from those games?
I had a long talk, not this camp, but last year. I was in Tallahassee watching Florida State practice, and after practice, somehow Jimbo Fisher and I got around to this. Jimbo is adamant that they need to continue playing these games because the schools like he attended depend on the revenue from the big schools having the men and playing. I'm a little ambivalent about it. As long as you don't play too many, I'm okay with it. I think that we're probably going to reach a point in the business aspect of it. I know nobody likes it when we say it's a business, but it certainly is. It certainly is a business. And you look right now at what a great job television does, us and our competitors as well, and what an experience it is to watch a game at home. You have to do something to make people want to come to the stadium to enjoy the experience, to make it different. And it can't necessarily be a game where you know your team's going to win 52-0, because most of these schools, and you guys know at Notre Dame, you drive 2 or 3 hours to get there. Maybe in Notre Dame's case, maybe you fly and then drive, and you spend the entire day there. It's a commitment. Yep. You're making a commitment to go to the game, and it needs to be something special. Because of that, I think everybody needs to probably upgrade their schedules. The SEC and the ACC need to play more conference games. They're still only playing 8. They need to play 9 or 10 and then play one on the outside. And then if you play 11 big-time games and you have one more where you're helping out a smaller program or getting your team rested before a rivalry game, I've got no issue with it. But those two conferences particularly need to up the ante a little bit.
And again, it always is an interesting one with the smaller schools because they do get a good payday. And that payday can do well for that school. And I know that I would speak for a smaller school player. I don't know if you would as well, Mike. I think those players look forward to it. I think those players look, because we always talk about, someone going to get hurt, they're going to get slaughtered. I think those guys want to see how they match up against the Alabamas of the world and the big schools of the world. So I'm kind of both ways on it. I think those guys like to do that. The money certainly helps the small school, but it's not an attractive matchup, to your point, for people to watch.
It's not, and everybody gets all upset when they happen in November. I don't, because I don't think there's any difference in it happening September or the week before rivalry games like several of the schools in the SEC do. But one of the things that you've had happen down there is you've had a good FCS team come in to play a contender, and it's the FCS team who starts protecting its players, they've got the playoffs coming. You know, I mean,
Right.
it's almost like an NFL situation where your spot in the postseason has been clinched, and you want to be careful with your quarterback. So you've seen some of that as well.
And listen, we've seen enough instances, too, where a lot of people will justify it, the crowd that you talked about, running up the score, players getting injured, where you look and see, I think it was the Citadel giving Florida a run for its money last year or the year before. People will go all the way back to App State and Michigan and try and make a lot of those parables, but it's a little bit tougher to justify. So sticking with the top-end teams, this feels almost NBA, and we've talked about the Patriots like this in the NFL. We talked about Golden State, Cleveland like this. Alabama, Ohio State seems like one that people are circling already as a college football playoff and maybe even a national title picture. A team outside of those two, maybe even outside of the top four, that you see as the biggest threat to those?
Well, I put Florida State in there because I've said I think the first game in Atlanta will also be the last one, Alabama and Florida State. But Ohio State's certainly right there with them. Outside the top four, depending on where you think Clemson is, I think if Clemson's quarterback situation is resolved, then they're going to be as good as Florida State and Alabama, Ohio State. You just need to see that to make sure. I like Oklahoma State on offense. I think that their offense, if their defense can help the offense, Mason Rudolph and those guys, if James Washington's healthy, that they could be a sleeper. TCU, also out of the Big 12, and then another team that's going to open up early in Australia that I think will have a little bit of a bounce back. They finished strong last year, and they have enough challenges on the schedule, and the home schedule falls right, is Stanford. I think Stanford is a team that will be more of a factor in the playoff race in the Pac-12 race.
Picking two Big 12 teams before Oklahoma, huh?
No, he was saying outside. I was sort of.
Oh, you're putting Oklahoma in that. Okay, okay.
Maybe
not
in the top four.
I got you.
Oklahoma's like a top 6, 7, 8 team.
All right. I thought I had a scoop there.
Yeah,
you were looking to make some news.
I was, yeah.
You were looking to make some news out of that one. Rece, I want to look at another Big Ten team in all of this. Michigan. Mm-hmm. You look at what they've been able to accomplish, and they're playing the quarterback situation close to the vest. Wilton Spate, John O'Korn, Jim Harbaugh, keeping the rest of that roster, I should say, shrouded in mystery. What are we expecting out of that team that turned over so much NFL talent here early on in the Harbaugh tenure?
I have so much faith in what Harbaugh's done and in their recruiting his first couple of years. I think they had some young guys who played a good bit. I know they lost virtually all of their starters on defense. I think they're going to be really good. I know people are very skeptical, and I've seen people say they're going to be ranked around the top 10 only because of Harbaugh.
Right.
That's where I have them. I am an AP poll voter this year. I think they're going to be a threat because his teams are just that. He's got it up and running now. He certainly has a lot of pieces to replace on defense, but I think they have enough in place and enough young guys who played a good bit as freshmen last year who will fill that void nicely. I think they're going to be really good.
It is Mike and Mike. Mike Golic Jr. in for Greeny today alongside Dad, who's always here.
Yes, I am.
Well,
not always.
Not as much during the summer, but we roll on nonetheless. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line. And I understand you've got something interesting.
I'm starting to read a lot of tweets. Listen, we got a lot to talk about, from spoilers to the Eclipse today to some news out of the NFL, which could lead to news down the road. But I'm getting more than a few tweets of people wanting to know, when you were at your best as a player and I was at my best as a player.
We doing this again?
Could you block me?
How many times have we done this already? How many times do I have to give the same answer?
Listen, we have new people that tune in, tune out. Some of them didn't hear the answer before. Some of them want to hear it again. They want you to be truthful about this. You at your best, me at my best. Could you block me? You can take it run blocking, pass blocking, total game, however you want it to. Go ahead.
Go back and listen to the podcast, people. Like, this feels cheap. Honestly, how many times do I have to tell you this? He couldn't pass rush. Couldn't do it. Run blocking, I always said, like, that'd probably be a stalemate at best, which in most cases, unless you're Larry Allen or Zach Martin in the league, you're not exactly driving a guy off the ball anymore.
Right.
I'll take the stalemate in the run game. With the pass game, it's basically just going to be like the run game, too. Just going to stick there. Like white on rice. Hold the whole time. You know what we'll do? We'll bring Madden back for the call, because that's exactly what it would sound like. Guys just standing there on the line, just taking up space.
Seriously.
Just standing on the line of scrimmage.
Love you guys. Brooksy, that's how you redeem yourself.
So you think you could have blocked me? You think you could have stalemated me? Which, if you stalemate on the O-line, that's a win for the O-line. You can never trade one for one as a defensive lineman.
Yeah,
so to run block.
automatic.
So you think you'd stalemate me in the run, and you think you could pass block?
Well, I'd stalemate you right off the line of scrimmage, but then you're sort of clumsy, so you would probably trip or something like that. Like something small would deflect you because you're not the greatest athlete in the world. We all kind of knew that.
And you were?
Well, listen, again, I didn't have to be on the offensive line, necessarily athleticism. You're on the defensive side. You're all supposed to be better athletes than us, and that was never really your MO. So something on the field would trip you up, a blade of grass would be out of place, and you would falter just enough for me to then bury you in the run game and get that double plus on the grade sheet. Be nice.
The double plus is where you go.
Yeah, the old double plus. So, again, people listen to that, clip that, make it a part of your life, because we've had to answer this pretty much every time I've ever been on with you, and I don't like having to keep doing this to you. Like, I don't like this. It doesn't make me feel good.
I completely disagree. I run blocking, I'd get my hands on you, discard you when need be, and make the tackle. There's not going to be any doubt of that.
You get your hands on me, but Reggie would have already made the tackle.
Well, that's one thing. I'd have been there. I'd get an assist.
Been in the area.
You get an assist. Pass blocking. I mean, I was not the greatest pass rusher in the world. How would you rate yourself as a pass blocker? Okay.
Let's maybe not talk about that.
Well, there we go.
I read Mel Kiper's draft report, and it wasn't the most glowing. Mostly because it wasn't written because I wasn't going to be drafted.
I was just going to say, I don't remember that breakdown.
No, yeah, I'm not going to do myself the pat on the back of actually saying that Mel took the time to break me down. I saved him the trouble on that one and just went undrafted. Things worked out fine.
The biggest question, I had 3 interceptions in my career. When I got an interception, would you be able to tackle me?
Oh, yeah, you'd have been the one I've been looking to light up. Like all game.
But I was faster than you.
Yeah, really?
Come on, I never ran over a 5 in the 40. You never ran under a 5.
You know what the best part is, though, is I wouldn't have to worry about it because even if I missed, I knew the quarterback was going to get you.
Okay, never mind. We're going to move on from that.
You ready? You got something else now? You want to talk about eclipses or make fun of Herm Edwards?
No, we're going to get to eclipses. We're going to talk about over-under on records that may be eclipsed have to do with the eclipse. So we'll get to the eclipse in a minute. But this news I gave a little bit ago and put it in conjunction with what's going on with the union as well. And we'll play some of the sound from DeMaurice Smith from Monday Morning Quarterback. But Roger Goodell, it looks like he's close to signing a new 5-year extension. His deal now runs through 2019. So he's looking to sign a 5-year extension that would take it through 2024, which means he would be in place once he signs this extension for what everybody's thinking is the big showdown after the 2020 season, which will end in February of 2021 when the CBA will be done and they will start the negotiations for a new one. So if Roger Goodell signs that extension, he'll be the commissioner for that. On the other side of it, for the union, for DeMaurice Smith, he came into power in 2009, and how it works for the union is every 3 years in March, is an election. So the next election for him is after this season, which will end in 2018 in the Super Bowl. March of 2018, there'll be an election. So if he is reelected then, the next one will be in March of 2021.
During what would be...
Which would be right the month after basically a month or so after the Super Bowl ends that season, when you start negotiating for the new deal. Unless they somehow change it, and I don't know what they would, there will be an election right smack dab when the negotiation is going on. So that will be somewhat interesting. So if Goodell will be in place for this, DeMaurice Smith has to win another election in 2018 and then another one in 2021. And there were those that thought he might lose the last election to Troy Vincent back in 2015. D won it. So, like I said, 2 more elections before that. But let's also hear from DeMaurice Smith. He was talking to Albert Breer on the Monday Morning Quarterback about what is looming when that CBA expires after the 2020 season.
I think that the likelihood of either a strike or a lockout in 21 is almost a virtual certainty. If there is no renegotiation of the collective bargaining agreement and we reach 2021, there is no uncapped year, right? Mm-hmm. Because the last time we went through it, we found out that the owners lied and cheated about the uncapped year. So why would I do that again? All of the mutual benefits that were supposed to happen as a result of the opt-out didn't happen last time. Owners colluded with each other, and we found out they colluded with each other, and all of the bad things that went to the players happened, and none of the bad things that went to the owners happened. So we have a new deal where if it doesn't get fixed, you head into a certain small A Armageddon.
It's a horrible relationship, union and league. Roger Goodell, DeMaurice Smith. And it's a shame because we're seeing what's going on in the NFL with Adam Silver and Michelle Roberts from the union. The NBA, the NBA, on how well they seem to be working together. And I'm sure it's not all roses, but still they're getting things done. And it's just not happening. There's just no trust. There's zero trust between the two. So I would ask you, as most recently of us being in the league, and a lot of this would be directed to at college guys because – remember, this is 2021 we're talking about. There's going to be
average
heavy
career
turnover by then. So if you're a young player and you're hearing DeMaurice Smith say that, what's your thought process?
You're disheartened because we remember back in 2011 when the last lockout went on. I remember my friends that were coming out in that draft class and how it affects a lot of guys.
Was that Kyle Rudolph?
That was Kyle Rudolph and Jimmy Clausen were in that class, Golden Tate, all guys in that draft class. But I remember teammates of mine who were guys that were going to end up going undrafted, how that affects them a lot more. Because if you're a high draft pick, you know you're coming into training camp getting a little more chance than most because of the amount teams have already invested in you. As an undrafted guy who's looking at all that offseason as time to be in the building, learn that system, give yourself the best chance, you're just losing out on reps and opportunities. So if you're those guys that are already going to be grossly and disproportionately affected by this because your earning window is smaller, this is an even more daunting task. If you are one of those top-end guys, you've got to think about this a little differently and understand that, all right, I'm coming in the midst of all this, and I've got to figure out how to navigate waters that haven't come up in over a decade.
So,
or in a decade.
What would have been your reaction to a Richard Sherman who is a smart guy, no doubt about that, but Richard Sherman coming out, there's way more foot soldiers, i.e. you and I, than top-end players in the league. Between 53-man rosters and then the 10-person practice squad, you're talking almost 2,000 players, of which a high majority are more the foot soldier type. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's the meat of the bell curve in the NFL.
So if Richard Sherman, who, again, smart guy, understands things that are going on, but if you hear him say, a guy who's making millions upon millions of dollars, say, we need to be ready, we need to be ready to sit out game and miss checks, how do you think the quote-unquote foot soldiers of the league will take something like that?
Not well, but you also kind of understand your place in the pecking order, right? That even though the union is designed to represent the whole, they've also got to do what they deem as best for that whole, and usually that's top down. Usually that's by pulling up the top percentage of the league, but you also understand more often than not, those are the guys that are making the decisions. Now, I understand you'll get guys like Ryan Clark that'll be involved as PA heads who was an undrafted free agent, so certainly understands the plight of that group in a unique way, and Pittsburgh's always been a place where the team is actually listen to the advice of its union reps, whereas most places it's like pulling teeth because of that. But when you've got so many guys in general, I think, that are those guys that say, my earning window's small, none of these things really apply to me, they're less inclined to listen. So if you're a PA rep or one of the guys involved, why are you inclined to take them more into account than everyone else if they're not paying attention, if they're treating this like something that isn't their problem to begin with?
I can say in my 9 years in the league, we had many union meetings. I was part of the Wildcat strike in 87 when we were out for 4 games, and as soon as we had big-name players cross the line, that was the end of it. I mean, there's way more players than owners, so as soon as we get players crossing the line, we're done.
And how much of that do you think changes now? Like, if we had a similar situation now, do you look at the salaries in today's league and say those top-end players would now be less inclined to do what happened during your guys'
I mean, with the guaranteed money you're going to get, I don't know. I mean, that's a great unknown for me, and that's always been the and you brought up the point. There are so many players, and the time frame you're in the league is so short that a lot of times we'll sit in a meeting room. And our player rep, a lot of times it was Reggie White, we'll get up there and we'll talk about what we're looking to do. And a lot of guys sit in there and a lot of guys just don't pay attention. they say at the end, a lot of this isn't going to affect me. And it's a shame. There's a bit of apathy to that. So it's left up to the rep to represent, which they do. So you have the 32 reps talking to the union and saying, yes, this is what my constituents want, when they're sitting there kind of just saying, you know what, do what you want. Now, that's also the player's fault. You have to take an investment in it and listen, and you can try and be proactive if you want. But there quite honestly are a lot of players who are saying, you know what, I'm going to try and get what I can get because I know I'm not going to be in this game long.
But I'm saying, so that your point is there's still then a responsibility on the part of the players in the union to make sure that those guys are represented, even if they are apathetic to that end, and even if the ones that are putting the work together on this are going to be the guys that are going to be on the other side and understand, all right, if we're looking at things that benefit everyone, the guys may not care about right now, but that we understand does the greatest amount of good for future players going forward, are you not just as much obligated to that group of players coming up on the other end of the CBA? Because they got taken out behind the woodshed in the 2011 CBA negotiation by most accounts. So I guess looking at it from that vantage point, would it be that surprising for them to say we're going to focus more on those guys in college coming up on the other end than the guys that are our actual constituents now?
I mean, I think they're going to look at a lot of college guys that are going to be in the league by then. But for them, then it comes down to issues. You know, what do you deem important? What a lot of the public sees as what they think would be important. Behind the scenes, the players, you know, you talk about after ball is over with pension and all that. Some of the and one of the things they did want and got in 11 is the off-season program starting later. That was better for veterans. The only 14 padded practices during the regular season and things like that to help preserve the body a little bit. But we know what the biggest fight out there is right now. It's control, right? It's the power that Roger Goodell has. And I guess I would say this. I was a union guy. I got caught on CNN throwing rocks at the buses of the replacement players. I was as staunch a union person as there was, and I stayed out. I picketed. I took my turn. I carried my sign. I picketed, and I watched, unfortunately, one high-profile, big money-making peer of mine cross the picket line and screwed us all, and that was it. You know, that was the end of the road for us. So that's the tough part, is getting the resolve of 2,000 players to stick it out for something that you firmly believe in. And I know one of the biggest topics out right now is the power that Roger Goodell has. And that is something that the league wants Roger Goodell to have. And when you start talking about digging heels in, you have to start deciding what's worth the fight. And to me, with 2,000 players, to say for what would be such a low percentage of people affected by Roger Goodell and his power, is that one of the things you're going to choose to sit for? Or do you have to find something that's more universal to the 2,000 players to say, this is what we choose? Because before the CBA, that's what has to be done. You're trying to decide what you want to fight for and what you're going to fight the most for. What are you going to give to get? What do you really want, and what are you willing to give up for it as well? And I just hope, listen, I know they say absolute power, absolutely corrupts. I get it. And I know they don't like the league having all the power, but that's not a battle they're going to win. That seems to be the biggest one out there right now. But if the league and the owners want Roger Goodell to have that, or the commissioner to have that, in my opinion, they're going to be able to hold out a lot longer than the players are if they really, really want that.
Well, I heard Dominique Foxworth, who used to be the president of the PA, say this is all about leverage, and all of this is what you set up now. It's not done when that clock strikes midnight later on. This is done all along the way leading up. Something we brought up earlier about the turnover in the league. Elias Sports Bureau got back to us. 38% of players from 2012 were still in the NFL in 2016, meaning that when the CBA expires, approximately 2 of 5 players in the league right now this season will be around for that next collective bargaining agreement. So that's essentially what you're dealing with, around 40% of these guys involved in that turnover. And of that leverage, you brought up the point of Goodell's power. These are things that the players gave up along the way.
Right.
Because they thought, again, referencing Dominique, they thought at the time cleaning up the image of the league because of what some guys were doing that wasn't legally penalized, but that was making players look bad, was good to have penalized. And that applied to a lot of other things, Roger Goodell's power being one of them. But it's about, okay, you've given those things away already. The rookie wage scale is another example of that.
Right.
Something that they thought would get distributed to veterans and is actually killing mid-level veterans off.
Mid-level veterans lose out.
Quarterbacks make a lot of money. Rookies don't make nearly as much money as they do, and everyone in the middle is trying to figure out how they're going to get paid off the top end. So now what can you do to get those things back? And to your point, maybe any one issue is not enough to affect guys, but when you take all of those, there's enough along the way of all of those, whether it is better health benefits for guys after their career, which affects everyone who's every one of those guys, especially the vested veterans in the league, whether it is guaranteed money in the way contracts are structured and gone about, whether it is the subject of marijuana and opioids, which affects a lot of guys in this league. We can make the marijuana policy talk about the guys getting suspended, but really a lot of it has been about what the PA has been researching and looking into is using it for the added health benefits. That's something that affects a lot of guys and their long-term health with the opioid conversation.
I completely agree, and I think that's more the things to concentrate on.
But I guess what I'm saying, when you look at the decision is 2 strike or is not, your point is it's about what you're willing to fight for. Mine is you've got enough bundled together that you want to fight for. So it seems like if you want to get any of that done, there's really only one way to go about it.
Oh, yeah, that's the only leverage that they're going to have is I guess my point is I hope they pick the right spots. Because as a former player, I want to see good things happen to the players. And then when they become former players, when they are done playing, I would love to see all those things improve. But obviously, for players that are playing, they want to see their current environment improved as well. And I get that. That's the interesting part to me is what are they going to be willing to fight for? Because once you decide what you're willing to fight for, then it comes down to how long are you willing to fight for that then? How long will it take you? How long are you willing to be out? It was your old teammate, Ramon Foster. Wasn't he the one saying guys need to start putting stuff away now? That's a hard statement because you just said only 2 of the 5 are going to be around. That means 3 of 5 aren't. So I don't understand how some people are going to process that and say, what do you mean I have to start putting it away?
It is interesting, though, when you think about what's just asked there, what's bad about that? The idea that they're asking you to save the money that you're earning right now, which benefits you regardless of if there's a lockout or not.
Yeah,
like
it's still money you have.
There's nothing. I mean, there's been points. I mean, I heard the ideas float around when I was in locker rooms of, things like extending salaries year round to try and keep guys from overspending the money. What part of just saving your money up sounds bad on any sort of base level? So maybe that criticism, while to your point, it affects guys differently because of the amounts of money they're making. It's not really a difficult ask.
Still your money. It's just what you do with it, right?
Exactly. And what you do with it, I mean, doing the right things with it in general seems like it would accomplish this same goal. And it just becomes interesting talking about a leverage play. This almost seems like a response. D's was almost a call to action for the players, to your point.
Yes.
More to them than to the owners saying we're willing to fight this. But this contract extension at this time seems sort of like a response. It's saying a large portion of what you guys are attacking is this guy's power, and we want to double down on him.
Yep, and he's going to be there. He's going to be there through this. So going to be very, very interesting where this thing goes. Obviously, a lot of time to talk about it.
A lot of time to talk about it, but certainly something to keep an eye on. Mike and Mike is brought to you by DraftKings. Try daily fantasy for free at DraftKings. Use the code Mike now at DraftKings.com.
And by the way, how did that go? The marathon, you had Stugatz last year and you had Sarah Spain this year.
Sarah Spain
you
this
couldn't
year.
be any different than Stugatz and Sarah.
Stugatz versus buttoned-up professional.
Yeah.
One of the best voices we've got at ESPN.
Yep.
Came into it with some great ideas, some great bits during the marathon. She was awesome. She buoyed the personal hygiene of the room, considering mine more closely resembled Stugatz. So we got through it. That's about all I can really say about that. Sarah was kind enough to tolerate me through that. And I'm sure, like Stugatz, she'll graduate from the marathon.
Right.
She'll maybe receive a little bit of the marathon bump coming off of that, the surge in popularity.
And you'll be there again.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Have you gotten over it yet? Again, for those that may not know what happened, for those of you that watch Game of Thrones, we will not ruin it for you again. But last night was a really good episode, and Mike did not see it. You were at a John Mayer concert, which some people say if you chose John Mayer over Game of Thrones, it's your own fault.
Yeah, those people clearly have never listened to John Mayer.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
I mean, come on. He's amazing.
But you missed it. This is the second to last episode. It's not the season-ending episode, and it's not the first episode. So you would think there'd be like that 24-hour time period. Herm Edwards, who watches Game of Thrones incredibly in the first hour of the show, as we were ending the hour, being counted down in our ears, said he was just going to give you a little bit of something, and I thought it was going to be something ancillary. He gave you the major, absolute, positive, major breaking thing that happened last night in Game of Thrones. It was stunning.
I came in here and I just asked one simple kindness out of everyone. We weren't even 12 hours removed from last night's Game of Thrones episode, and Herm couldn't even do me that one kindness. He was a guy that I'd seen enough around here in the building. I considered him somewhat of a friend. As a coach, you always kind of respect those figures from the player side of things, and now my world is broken, and it's all thanks to Herm Edwards.
And the way he did it, didn't even seem to understand.
Came back in the room 20 minutes later just to throw it in my face again. Again, he doesn't understand the people he's hurt.
I was stunned by it, and he's been getting crushed on Twitter for it. I wonder what he thinks about what's going on in his Twitter feed.
He has no idea. Is Herm even on Twitter? No way he's on Twitter. That's the thing. He's completely separate from that world.
Press in.
He's like the guy in the movie that just lights a match, throws it behind him, and walks away. The world burns, and he has no idea other than the brief sound of an explosion off in the distance.
So between that we have sorry we blew that for you, and then the fact that the eclipse is today, somewhere in the country, wherever you are, you can find out exactly when it's going to get to you. So I know I'll see the eclipse here in Hartford to be about the full one at about 2:45. So we'll check it out. So we thought we'd have a little bit of fun with eclipsing records.
Yes, so we've got over-unders in the world of the eclipse. Over-unders brought to you by Cabbage, who created a simple way for businesses to get flexible access to up to $100,000. That's Cabbage with a K. So we've got eclipse over-unders. I'll start you off with this one. I'm going to ask you first, and we'll bounce these around.
Famous records, are they going to be eclipsed?
In the world of sports, with a total solar eclipse happening today, will these records ever be eclipsed? Over-under. Jack Nicklaus's 18 career major victories.
Well, obviously the thought of that was going to be Tiger Woods. That's not going to happen. Jordan Spieth, now the youngster, has joined Jack this year as the only player to win 3 legs of the Grand Slam before his 24th birthday. I will take the under on that. I don't think anybody, at least I know right now, is going to break that, or the young group that we're talking about. I think there's a lot of good ones out there, so I don't think there's going to be one that's going to be dominant enough to get to the 18 majors, so I'm going to take the under on that.
Yeah, actually, we brought this up before in the Business Insider article, Millennials Killing Golf,
yes.
So if someone doesn't hurry, this one is never going to happen, and there could be a litany of reasons for that. Now, we're getting into a vein where a lot more guys are taking time off and building their schedules more around these major tournaments, but so far that hasn't yielded, I think, the results that people would expect. First it was Rory McIlroy, now it's been Spieth, and we're waiting for one guy to retain that stranglehold, and I think we're going to be waiting a while.
Yeah, I think we are as well.
All right, over-under. Barry Bonds' 762 career home runs.
All right, so Albert Pujols has 608. Stanton has 252. At the same age of Stanton, Bonds had 176. Mike Trout has 191. At the same through season, Bonds had 117. I actually do think this one's going to go down. You have Stanton, you have Trout, you have Bryce Harper as well. I do think someone will get to it. And if it's considered a clean player, I think that will be – we're never going to have the home run number as huge as – that was like the biggest number in sports, quite honestly.
Yes.
The home run number from Babe Ruth to Hank Aaron, and then in the regular season, obviously, as well, with Roger Maris. Those numbers were gold. I don't think we'll ever get there again, but I do think a lot of people would love who they deem a clean athlete to pass Barry Bonds. And I'll take the over. I think it's going to happen.
I'll take the over, too, and I think that would be a huge milestone for baseball is if you could get one of those hallowed records sort of retaken from the steroid era, is I'm sure how a lot of people would phrase it. If you've got guys that have been able to keep their nose out of that kind of business in the eyes of the public, I think that would be huge in a community that really reveres these numbers as much as baseball does. So I think ultimately that's going to be an over, and I think that's going to be a good thing for baseball, even though I'm not into demonizing the steroid-era guys in the same way that everyone else is. Again, we've got solar eclipse theme off the tops coming at you right now here, records that will be eclipsed in the world of sports. Over under Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's 38,387 career points.
LeBron James has over 28,700. Kareem at the point through age 32 season was 24,000. Kevin Durant has 19,100 plus points. Kareem, through age 28 season, 16,400. I absolutely think this one is going to get broken, whether it's by LeBron and then by Kevin Durant. But I think you'll see a couple of people in this era be breaking that record on down the road when they're done with their career. So I definitely see the over on that.
Yeah, and a lot of this has to do with what we always talk about in football is the career longevity. Now, basketball has always been a sport where you've had guys playing for such a long time, but you add all the advances in exercise science, you see enough LeBron James offseason workout videos, Hoodie Carmelo Anthony out there giving people buckets, and you realize that these guys are probably going to be able to keep their golden years going a lot longer. LeBron James, we continue to wait for the drop-off for one of the game's marquee players, but nonetheless, he's been able to extend that prime a long way. All right, and as noted to me by some people, this is not off the top. This is over-under.
Yeah, it's over-under. I didn't want
to. So over-under.
You know, you're my son. I didn't want to rail on you too bad.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm sort of used to it at this point. So we move on with over-under and Eric Dickerson's 2,105 rush yards in a single season.
Adrian Peterson went 2,097 yards in 2012. I'm going to take the under on this. I just don't think the running game's that important anymore where someone's going to get enough carries for that. Too much involved in the passing game as well. You look at the top backs in the game right now. They run the ball, but more importantly, they catch the ball out of the backfield, and they're matchup nightmares for those defenders who are trying to cover them. I just don't see enough of a rushing attack where someone gets that many carries to break that record.
I struggle with this because we have some really great rushers.
Yes, we do.
In the league right now, but you also look, and it's already seemed to become a trouble for a few of them, Le'Veon Bell, Zeke Elliott, not being able to stay on the field right now. It's year 2 for Zeke, and he's already facing the prospect of missing 6 games. Le'Veon Bell seems to miss 2 or 3 games every season, either for injury or for some suspension on his end. And so you just start to wonder if, with all of those things in conjunction, if those guys are going to be able to. Zeke would have been the one for me just because so much of that game for the Cowboys was predicated on that ground attack.
Right.
And now I think Dak Prescott is going to be asked to shoulder more of the load earlier than expected there, and that's going to send that team's offense in a little bit of a different direction. All right, we've got over-under here. Back to baseball. Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hit streak.
Closest streak since DiMaggio on 78, Pete Rose 44, 87, Paul Molitor 39, 05-06, Jimmy Rollins 38. I'll take the under on that. I don't think it's happening. And I don't even think – people don't even start talking about it till they mention it when it's in the 20s. They start talking more in the 30s. I know Bob Picozzi, who used to work on our show all the time, said, get back to me when you're in the 40s, and then we'll start to discuss it. I don't see it happening. Don't see it.
I just think for me in this one, we've heard so much from our baseball people around here about right now, baseball has basically been about trying to get home runs more so than trying to just get hits, trying to get guys on bases. And so you've got a game that's more predicated to what we've seen out of Aaron Judge, big-time production home run-wise, but also setting all-time records in the strikeout category. So it's very boom or bust in a way that doesn't lend itself well to a hit streak like this. Hammer the under. Over-under, Russell Westbrook's 42 triple-doubles in a season.
Let's see. Big O had 41. That Oscar Robertson 41 triple-doubles, so Russell got the 42. To me, it was a perfect storm. It was a team that was going to be a lower seed. It was a team that only had Russell Westbrook, the guy who, oh, by the way, had his hands on the ball all the time. So, yeah, let's be honest. If Kevin Durant was still on that team and didn't go to Golden State, Russell Westbrook wouldn't have had that. So to me, it was the perfect storm with that kind of a player. So to me, the question would only be, will Russell Westbrook do it again next year? Now he's got Paul George on the team with him. So I'm not to say that the perfect storm can't happen again. I think I'm going to take the under on that. I'm going to say I'm going to think I'm very close. I'm really hemming and hawing on that one. I'm very close to straddling the line on that one, but I'll lean to the under.
I'll take the over on this one just because I think we are still going to end up in a place. There's so many big stars in the league that haven't yet ended up glommed together. We know that that's becoming the trend now. People want to keep saying the term super team, but stars joining up in different spots. But we've got enough talent coming into the league that someone's going to be left on an island somewhere, and we know the offense right now in the game is certainly unparalleled. People want to slight the defense. It looks different in a way that I think opens itself up to something like this happening again. I think we can see another version of this, although not from Russ. I don't even think he wants to go down this road.
I would agree with that.
Again. And finally here, one last one. Over under Peyton Manning's 55 touchdowns in a season.
Single season leader since Manning's record. 2014, Andrew Luck led the league with 40. 2015, Tom Brady 36. 2016, Aaron Rodgers 40. It's a passing league. I would lean more toward it going to happen, some quarterback just being on, and just hitting. And I know that was the season. Didn't Manning start out with like 6 or 7 touchdowns in week 1? I mean, it was ridiculous, the start he got off to that year. But in this pass-happy league that we have where a quarterback can throw himself a little bubble screen and get a touchdown out of it, or a swing pass to or check down to a back in the back, get in the end zone, and it's a touchdown pass for the quarterback, I just think there's enough passing in this league to where I'll take the over on that.
I think I'm actually going to take the under on this one. And we've talked about the difference in the quarterback product coming out of colleges now and how difficult it is between that, the changes in the NFL offseason, and trying to get these guys built into competent passers. I get it's more of a passing league, but I think you also had a unique talent. Peyton Manning, for all of his postseason struggles, maybe the best regular season quarterback we've ever had, an absolute football robot. I don't know if we're going to get that caliber of guy anytime in the near future, at least, that's going to be able to match that production. That was over-under, the Eclipse themed edition.
There you go.
Yeah.
Were these big records ever